5 miles from Times Square is Floyd Bennett Field, a decommissioned airfield which was turned into a migrant shelter at the end of 2023. This 2,000-bed facility housed migrant families with children for over a year before it was officially shut down by city officials this week. But from day one, it was also a battleground. Migrant activists criticized the facility for lacking privacy and adequate bathroom access and sufficient warmth. That was not the biggest issue, though. Because of who controls the land on which the facility sits, Floyd Bennett Field became a prime target for Trump's promised mass deportations. Here's a special report from MSNBC contributor Paula Ramos.
So we're right outside the Floyd Bennett Field migrant shelter. We're in South Brooklyn right now. This is also the only shelter in all of New York City that sits on federal land. So what that means is that the Trump administration could carry out raids here and can turn this into a detention center. These are volunteers from Floyd Bennett Field Neighbors, a group of 300 local residents who have taken it upon themselves to fight for these migrant families, pushing New York City to shut down the tent complex and have all migrants relocated to safer shelters before Trump returns to power.
We have to fix our broken immigration system.
The shelter officially closed this week. Mayor Eric Adams cited declining migrant arrivals. But for families like Jason Gonzalez's, asylum seekers from Venezuela, leaving these tents was crucial to dodging Trump's deportation threats. They arrived in the U.S. only 2 weeks before Trump was reelected. They left the shelter with the help of the Floyd Bennett Field Neighbors just weeks before Trump's inauguration.
Bueno, que están cerrando este lugar porque la tierra es federal, entonces puede estar en blanco para el presidente Trump, para deportaciones potencialmente.
Ese era el gran temor que teníamos. Toda la familia residiendo.
The relocation process starts here, at the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan, the city's central migrant arrival hub.
Un poco más tranquilo, emocionalmente más estable, sabiendo de que vamos a un sitio más seguro.
Trump está a punto de llegar al poder. ¿Han pensado en un plan de emergencia? ¿Lo han pensado?
Mira, lo he pensado y cuando escucho de que nos pueden separar de nuestros hijos es lo más duro. Yo no salí de mi país para que me separaran. Salí fue buscando, huyendo de la situación política, de las amenazas. Y vine aquí es para estar seguro con mi familia.
So with Trump coming into office in just a couple of days, we decided to go check on Jason and his family at this new shelter that they were assigned to. We're not disclosing where they are because of security purposes.
Esta es nuestra habitación. Nos permitieron 3 habitaciones. Pasa adelante.
¿Se sienten mejor?
Sí, aquí estamos muchísimo más seguros, más tranquilos también, sin el temor de las deportaciones masivas que tiene prometido el presidente Trump. Aunque ese temor
Nunca se va.
no, todavía existe y bastante. Se aproxima la fecha de toma de posesión y en realidad en mi persona estoy muy angustiado.
Lo que hemos escuchado es que debemos tener con nosotros los papeles de migración, alguna copia, todo el trámite de asilo.
Y eso es una de la planificación que he pensado con relación a nuestros hijos, de colocarle en el morral del colegio, colocarle copias de su pedido de asilo, y eso deberían de respetar.
Back in Brooklyn, the now dismantled airfield stands as a grim reminder of what's to come. Under Trump, even sanctuary cities may not be as safe as they once were.
Joining me now is someone who has recently and, like always, spending time reporting on the ground to such great success, talking to asylum seekers right here in the city, MSNBC contributor Paula Ramos. It's just always a good moment to have you here because there's always tumult and you do such an incredible job reporting on it, Paula. But first, you know, it feels like when you talk about these mass deportations, blue states sanctuary cities are going to be the target. Can you tell me a little bit about the level of fear that you saw on the part of both migrants and the people who have been helping shelter those migrants inside New York City?
Right. You mentioned, and we end the piece on this idea of what are sanctuary cities, no? And the first thing that comes to mind is Eric Adams on his way to go see Trump. And then I think about Floyd Benefield.
Yeah.
And I think if we zoom into that map, you see this migrant tent city in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
A Brooklyn where Donald Trump received 16,000 more votes in 2024 than in 2020. And then if you keep zooming in, you see that this migrant shelter is surrounded by pro-Trump districts. And just to give people some context, these districts are literally just 20 minutes away from the Statue of Liberty, a statue that then is overshadowing and shadowing over the sanctuary city, with a mayor, again, that hasn't just signaled this willingness to cooperate and collaborate with the Trump administration, but one that is literally on his way to go meet him just 4 days before inauguration. And so I think that's the question that these migrants have. How will this sanctuary city that has always been this embodiment of immigrants protect them from Trump? I think one of the things that is uncomfortable, but I think you and I have talked about this many times, is the way in which the migrant crisis fundamentally changed all these cities.
Totally.
Really testing what it means to be a sanctuary city, not just sort of this physical capacity to take on migrants, but the moral capacity, to sort of like hold on to these principles when this country is shifting to the right. I think that's the fear, that you can't even rely on this idea anymore.
They closed down. So I've been to the Roosevelt Hotel and done like the beginning stage of some of this reporting, where it's like there was a huge influx of migrants to the city. They didn't have places to shelter them. They create this kind of tent city out at Floyd Bennett, and now they have to close it because it's on federal land, and they're worried it's going to become a target for deportation raids. When you talk to the migrants who are kind of being shuttled throughout all of this, there's a family that you profile, and their kids are taking their asylum papers with them in their backpacks to school. What is the emotional tenor of this moment like for them? And how are the children grappling with this?
I mean, the number one question everyone had, and Jason, who we're seeing now on the screen, the one thing that's on his mind, and he told me, is, will they separate my family? Like, that is what everyone is thinking about. Will our families be separated? After crossing the Darien jungle, which they did, after navigating the Mexican cartels, crossing the southern border, they're seeking asylum in a country that is threatening to separate their families. And I think that's sort of what we have to understand. That's what's coming up. In 4 days, we're about to see a Trump administration that's not just empowered, but will be completely emboldened. I don't know if you remember in 2017, literally within Trump being in office a couple of months, ICE arrests completely increased by 30%. Because I think that's the fear that people like Jason have right now, no? What does it mean to have this administration emboldened? No, what it means is that literally you're going to have local law enforcement pretending to be ICE agents. You're going to have ICE feeling emboldened to go into churches, hospitals, as we talked about, schools. And you're going to have a new DHS that will also feel emboldened to pretend like we're literally being invaded at the southern border. You will have vigilantes emboldened to take matters into their own hands. And so all of this will definitely be contested. No? There will be legal fights, but I think the point is that what they're trying to do now is inflict fear. Inflict so much fear so that people like Jason either self-deport, right, or hide in the shadows. That's the strategy.
Do they have, does Jason have conversations with his kids? Are they aware of what is, when they say to you, we carry our papers in our backpacks, like, is there a conversation happening? Like, if they come to your school, you should do X, Y, and Z. Have they acknowledged, like, do you know if the kids who are going to be, who are obviously the most innocent in all of this, understand the threats on the horizon?
I had that same question. I don't think they do. They don't. And that's something that I keep thinking about now, no? I think this country, you either understand or you don't understand the significance of what's happening now. But I think one of the things I keep thinking about is what Joe Biden said yesterday in his speech, no? It's not just like this idea of who we are as Americans now, but who we should be. And so the question is, no, if you're watching this now, if you're just an American, what is being tested is not Jason, it is not Republicans, it's not MAGA, it's not Democrats, it is Americans' backbone. Now, how will we react when we start seeing these mass deportations and these family separations? Like, how will there be this collective moral outrage or not? That's what will save people like Jason.
Well, and I would say in the same way that the influx tested the sort of the moral fibers that connect us to one another here in New York City, I would imagine imagine deportation raids could also bring the New York City community closer together. I mean, how much tension is there between the mayor who's down there kissing the ring at Mar-a-Lago and the people that are running shelters and trying to help migrants who are city employees?
I think there's an unspoken tension. I mean, we have to say even getting access into the shelter that we saw right now was extremely hard. And the reason it was extremely hard is because the agencies truly understand that no matter who's in power, no matter what this mayor does, no matter if there's ICE around these neighborhoods, people need to be protected. And that is a tension that was really palpable, but I think it speaks to the moment we're in, no?